Hi friends, welcome back to my channel Testing Mini Bytes. I am your friend Amar Shaktivel, and in this video, we're going to see about how we can do the remote driver management. It's all about how we can manage our driver classes to handle how to run our web tests in remote, right? So when I mean remote, it's Selenium Grid, it can be your Selenoid, it can be your BrowserStack cloud, it can be your SaaS Lab cloud, it can be anything, right? But we are going to have a flexibility. If you want to add a new cloud tomorrow, we are going to have a flexibility in our framework, so that adding or removing something from the framework, it's going to be very easy, right? So yeah, and also we're going to refactor the existing local driver management a little, and then we'll proceed with this, right? So yeah, let's without wasting much time, let's go to the IntelliJ. And if you notice, this is a exact code that we have written for the local driver management. And the stuff here that I want to mention is, this can be still optimized. For example, we are doing this, whether the browser where we want to run this test, the calculation is being done here, right? We are checking whether the browser is Chrome, then we will call the Chrome manager.get driver. If it is Firefox, we will call the Firefox manager.get driver. That's fine, but the only thing that we want to highlight here is we are calling this from here. But if it is good if we pass the browser type from here instead of we do the evaluation here. This config factory.get config browser can be from here, so that your factory method exactly receives some input, and depends on the input, it's going to produce some output, right? That's what factory does, right? Imagine a shoe factory, right? What they do, okay, I want a shoe of size 10. So what it does, hey, I want a shoe of size 10. There should be some sort of input to the factory method, and it should, based on that, it should give the output, right? Here there is no input. We are doing all these calculations here, which is something looks okay, but that's not okay. So we'll optimize that. So what we do, we do this here, okay, config factory dot get config dot browser, right? And let's go there, and let's also add browser type, browser type, right? And let's remove this. Okay, is browser Chrome. Let's pass this browser type as an input. Here we can take browser type, right? And browser type. Here we can simply say, see, this is a very simple evaluation, right? We don't need to assign to a low variable and all that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to return, right? If it's evaluation, do the evaluation, okay, return this, okay, or return this, right? You don't need this statement at all, right? So yeah, so what I'm going to do is remove everything. Now it's a very simple if condition. So I'm going to do this evaluation. If this evaluated to true, I'm going to do return them a Chrome manager.get driver. Otherwise, I'll return them Firefox manager.get driver. So very simple. So now we can assign, align them accordingly. So it will be more readable, right? So this how our test now looks like. And let's also open the remote web driver factory that we have already created, and the same problem here as well. So we are doing some sort of evaluation inside the method, which shouldn't happen. So what we can do is move this as a parameter, right? So let's smooth this here, and okay, and also we want to know which browser we want to run it. So this basically needs two parameters. That's okay. And first, if it is Selenium, we want to create a class that's going to manage this Selenium grid. Okay, so what I'm going to do inside managers, I'll create a new class that's going to name it as okay, we can basically create it here because it's going to be a driver factory, and inside that is going to have different managers, right? So let me create a new class. Let's name it as Selenium grid factory. Okay, and this Selenium grid factory, it's also going to be final. It's going to have a private constructor and public static web driver, right? get driver. Guys, we'll do the even more refactoring with the help of supplier interface. But yeah, for now, this is for someone who doesn't have a lot of exposure with the functional programming in Java, right? So what I'm going to do, I'll pass the browser type. Okay, based on this browser type, it's going to evaluate something and it's going to return us the driver. So again, we're going to check whether this is Chrome or Firefox, and based on that, we're going to return the result. So again, I can basically tell return browser type equal to browser type.chrome, right? So this evaluation, you can move to another method, but yeah, what I'm going to do is Selenium grid Chrome manager. Okay, so I'm going to create class for everything, so it's going to be very easy for us. Get driver. Okay, if it is Chrome, we're going to call this, else we're going to create Selenium grid Firefox manager. Okay, dot get driver. Yeah, so let's create a class, and this particular class I want to create inside managers, right? And let's click on OK, let's add it, and also let's go there, create another class dot manager, click on OK, yes, and let's also create these methods, right? Good. Now let's go one by one. So let's go here, and this class has the role of returning WebDriver, right? So I'll also shield my constructor, and all I have to do is decide capabilities equal to new decide capabilities. It's all fine. Capabilities are set browser name. I'm going to set the browser name as Chrome here. So browser type from remote, and it's going to be Chrome, right? And I'm going to return new remote WebDriver, right? And new URL, and the URL is basically what I want from the users, right? Because we need to know where the Selenium grid is configured. We want the IP address. It can be in our local host, it can be a AWS machine. We want that, and also after that we need to pass the capabilities. Okay, so the only thing that is pending is the URL. So the better way to get it is from the configuration file. Let's go here and let's create Selenium grid URL. Again, guys, you can maintain a simple remote URL, something like remote URL for handling all the different Selenium grid, Selenoid, as well as BrowserStack. But in this case, I'm going to have a separate variables for each one of them, so that it's going to be a little easy. Okay, it's up to you. Again, okay, in a real-time project, you will normally have only one remote, right? So you can directly have something like a remote URL, and then you can output the value. But here I will not do that. I'll have a separate ones. So let's assume this is going to from local host 4444 wd hub. So this is going to be something that's what I think about. It can be anything, right? Remote URL where Selenium grid presence, right? So you can give some hint like this, and we have to map it, right? So let's go here and let's map it to. So at the end of the day, I want a URL. Let's do this. The name is this. Let's copy it. Let's assume we are passing it as a string. Selenium grid URL. Okay, and the key is okay. Key is same, so we can remove that. We don't need to mention it. Let's go to Selenium grid Chrome manager, and we can simply say config factory dot get config dot Selenium grid URL, right? Sorry, get config dot Selenium grid URL. So this is how it is, right? So, but again, if you notice, I have to add a try catch block here and all that. So this is again making my code clumsy. So what I can do here is, with the help of owner library, I can create a converter class for this. Okay, if instead of returning this as a string, if I return this as a URL, okay, then all my job will be done. So for that, I need a class, I need a converter class that's named this class as string to URL converter dot class. Okay, I don't have that class now, so let me basically create it. Okay, let's go here and create a class that's string, or basically I can copy this, right, string to URL converter. Good. And let's add this as well, and this implements converter from owner, and this is going to return as URL, right? So let's implement the methods, and here whatever the whatever the string URL we are getting, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert that into URL type, right? And I can handle the exception here. Okay, I can surround it with try catch, but for now I'm doing a sneaky throws. So now I don't have the necessity to handle this here, right? Because this is going to return me a URL type, right? Let's go to the framework config and change this to, I don't know why this is still throwing error. Let's remove this string converter class string to, okay, string to URL converter class, right? Now let's go here. Okay, I don't have to do all these things. It's always going to return me URL. And now I think it got confused. So remote WebDriver, I need a URL that is basically a presence in config factory dot. So this is now returning me a URL type, right? So it's fine. And I need to pass the capabilities, and this is the capability. I don't know why previously it showed error, but yeah, this looks really neat. I don't have to do the try catches or all the exception handling here. It is done here, right? So in this class, good. So this is what we call it as separations of concern. So I try to make my code very neat, right? So again, the same thing we want to do. Let's copy the whole stuff, right? And let's reuse here. And let's also make this as a private, and this is going to be final again. Instead of this, I'm going to make it as Firefox. So guys, we are done with the Selenium grid management. So now we can also do the Selenoid grid management, right? So this is going to be very simple, right? So let's go to the remote driver factory, and we can say return Selenium grid factory dot get driver. Whatever the browser type I'm getting, I'll just pass it on here, right? So this going to look something like this, right? So whatever that's coming, I'm going to do that, right? Similarly, we have to create something for the Selenoid and BrowserStack. Okay, let's also go here and create something. First, let's create a factory class Selenoid factory. Selenoid can be a grid, it can be a standalone. So yeah, let's name it as Selenoid factory, and make it as final. Let's do private constructors and public static. This also going to return as WebDriver, and this is going to have a method that accepts browser type, right? Not the browser type from here. It's going to be having browser type from arena package. Browser type. So simple this, yeah. So now based on the browser type, so let's go and copy paste some of the code that we have already written. Let's copy this, let's go here, let's paste it here, and instead of that, it's going to be Selenoid factory.get drive. Sorry, Selenoid Chrome manager driver. This is going to be Selenoid Firefox manager dot driver, right? And let's create a class inside manager, right? And let's go, okay, Okay, and go here, let's create another class inside manager package, add it. And also I want to create the get driver. Maybe this looks like a little redundant process. Let me pause the video, I'll do it everything, and I'll explain it again so that we can save some time, watching this. So yes guys, so I have actually created all these things in the meantime, so that we don't have to waste time me typing all these things. So what I have done is I have done all these things, and I have just kept the space to add the URL alone. As we all know, we need a Selenoid grid URL in order for us to execute the test. So for that, again, we go to the configured properties and we'll add Selenoid URL, and we can mention some URL. That's up to us, right? So for now I'm just keeping it with the local host, but yeah, it can be anything, right? So let's again go to the framework config, and let's try to copy this whole stuff, because we're going to have the same kind of conversions. So I can use the string to URL converter again, and here I can use Selenoid URL, right? So this is how it is, right? And let's go there and let's just give config factory dot get config dot Selenoid URL, right? And the same way I will go and make the changes in the Firefox manager as well. Config factory dot get config dot Selenoid URL, right? This is all good. Let's go to the browser stack manager. Again, the stuff that we need to understand here is URL is not straightforward. You have to add the username and access key. Maybe if I go to the BrowserStack website, if you notice, the URL is going to have this format: HTTPS username, and then you also have to mention, this is kind of a basic authentication that we can do with the URL itself, right? So it looks something like this. So your HTTPS, your username, or the access key, so that BrowserStack can distinguish you who you are, right? And then the URL. So we need to construct this and then put it. Again, doing all these things here might be very expensive piece of operation, and that might affect my readability. Let's keep this separate. So what I can do is basically I can add the BrowserStack username and password in the configured properties itself. But yeah, I feel let's keep this in a separate property file so that it's easy for us to manage. So let's create a new property file. Again guys, you can keep it in the same file, there is no problem, but I try to keep things separate so that it be easy for me to manage. Browser stack properties. Okay, I'll keep something, or I'll just mention browser hyphen stack dot properties, right? So this going to have the username for the browser stack, and let's assume this is one ABCD 1 2 3 4, and the key is going to be some values, okay, for now. But again guys, don't think I am exposing the username and password. We will do the git crypt when we are trying to push it to the GitHub repository. For now this is very dummy values, but yeah, we have git crypt to encrypt this value, so don't worry about exposing your secrets. Yeah, now we have these two things. From these two things we can basically construct our the endpoint URL, right? So this is easy for us to construct. So let's go here, and again you can basically do this here in the framework config class itself, or you can create a separate configuration files. That's up to you. In my case I'll try to keep the things separate, so I'll try to create a new class that's called as browser stack config. Okay, again guys, it's up to you how you want to do it, but yeah, it's not a class, it's going to be an interface that's going to map everything to the browser stack properties, right? So this is going to extend the config from A1 bits, and we're going to have string username, okay, and we'll also have string key, right? So that's the two things we have. So username, key, okay, and this is small letters. Let's go to the browser stack config and read key. So if the key mapping is different, you can just give username, right? Good. Now once you get these values, I can basically construct my URL. I can name this as browser stack URL, right? I can construct this. To construct this, all I want is at the rate default value. So this is going to be a default value. We are not going to change it. So it's going to be, let's copy this. Let's copy this stuff here and let's paste it here. And this is going to remain the same. And let's remove that. And the username and password is alone going to come from this username, right? We don't want anything else. So all we have to mention is $user, right? In the same way, I can remove this. Okay, I can remove this. This it's also not needed. And then I can simply say $key. Okay, so just going to fill the gap. So yeah, so it's going to be HTTPS and the username is going to come from here and the key is going to come from here, and we're going to construct the URL. And we are going to have a converter class because this is a string. I want to convert this into a converter classes, so I can use string to URL converter, right? Dot class. Now let's import this URL class. All good. Now let's go to the browser stack manager, and we have to simply say browser stack config, right? So this config, I have to create a factory for this. So let's go here and create a, previously we have config factory. This time I can say browser stack config factory. And I can simply, mimic the whatever the stuff that I have here. I'll copy this whole stuff and paste it here. And it's going to be final. This is this. And instead of that, I'm gonna give them browser stack config class, right? And this is going to return me browser stack config, right? So now let's go here and do config factory. That is, this is browser stack config factory, right? Browser stack config factory dot get browser stack URL. That's it. Same way for the Firefox again, browser stack config factory dot get. That's it. So now we have everything in place. No errors are here. Everything looks good. Let's close all these things. Again, if you notice, all the converters are grouped together. But let's create a new package here, so that we can group them together. For now, I'll name it as factory, and I'll put this and this inside that. Same way, the managers looks containing a lot of classes. Let's separate them. First, let's separate them with the web. These are all web. And first, I want to create a local. I don't want to create a class. Basically, I want to create a package, web.local. And inside the local, I can move these two things. And here, I'll create another package, web.remote, right? And inside remote, first I want to create something for Selenium. And inside Selenium, I'll put all the Selenium grid related stuff. Okay. And package, and this is going to be remote.selenoid. I'll do the refactoring. And I'll move these two things here. Now everything looks very organized. And let's also create one more package. This remote.browserStack. Now let's move this into this. Looks very, very neat. And let's also create a package for managing all these things. So see, we have a lot of driver factories here. So maybe inside web, I want to create first for local. Okay. And I'll move this there. Again, package web dot remote. Inside remote, I can have everything. Okay. So, yeah, and this also needs to go there. Yeah, so this is all fine. Now it looks very neat, very clean, and we will test this whether this is working in the next class. But before that, we can also add Selenoid factory.get driver, and we need to pass the browser type. Say return, this is BrowserStack factory.get driver. So let's go through all the classes once again, guys. So let's see how neat it is. So let's inside local, we have Chrome manager that's going to handle only the Chrome to run in your local browser, Firefox to run your test in your local Firefox browser. In remote, we have multiple options. Chrome manager going to deal only with the Chrome. Firefox manager of BrowserStack we're going to deal only with BrowserStack. Selenium grid Chrome manager going to deal about only the Chrome part of Selenium grid. So it's very neat, right? Each classes are separate. They do only one stuff, and it is very easy for us to manage as well. So even if you go inside this, okay, you have driver factory, that's just to manage where to run your test. Okay, you just pass the browser type, it handles everything for you. In remote, we have multiple options, but this remote driver factory going to give us a lot of options, like how we want to handle it. Again, we can optimize this with the help of supplier interface. We'll do that in the next video. I hope this video makes your stuff really helpful. So I'll see you guys in another great video. Until then, tata, bye bye from Modan. Bye.